Hey, hey, hey! You're here with me, Cinthia Varkevisser, your spiritual shit disturber and Mind Power Meets Mystics mystic. My pal and co-host, Michelle Walters, our Mind Power Junkie, is off today because she is working on her fabulous app. I'm going to put that app in the show notes so that you can take a look at what amazing things that she's doing at this time. So, while we're here together, we're going to talk about the true head heart hack, right? So, when your head and heart are having a quote unquote conversation, really what's happening is that there's a conflict that's trying to be resolved. Your analytical side wants to sway you one way, your emotional side wants to pull you in another direction. And like every good conflict, there's not so much listening and collaborating as there is trying to maneuver one way or the other, right? So the hack is your intuition. It is the bridge. It is the language that the head can hear and the vibration that the heart can understand. So let's talk a little bit about intuition, right? Intuition is a knowing that goes beyond emotions, and it is a knowing that helps um, open up all the restrictions that the analytical side has for you, right? So when your head and heart are fighting, your intuition doesn't have as much of a voice. If you can allow your intuition to just step up and be the mediator, then solutions will occur. Now, you're going to say, Cynthia, how in the hell do you do that? I want to remind you that there's a dunk method. I'm going to be honest. I wanted the anagram to be, is it an anagram? I believe it is. I wanted it to be a more uh thought-provoking word, like I wanted it to be spank, but I just couldn't make it um practical. So it's dunk, all right? And the dunk method works for you to access your intuition and trust yourself a little bit more. Okay, so what is the dunk method? You start with the letter D. D is get out of your shitstorm, get out of your personal shitstorm. D is for detach. What that means is when we are emotionally invested, that means that we have something in there that's still wanting to be right in this situation that we're in or this conversation that we're in. It really isn't about being right. It's about being detached. It's about looking at it objectively so that we can say, oh yeah, these are the edges around um, of what's going on. It makes our challenge a little bit more right-sized, right? Once we're detached, we can uncover the the reason behind the reason, right? So I had a client who was talking, and the word that they kept using was that they're very independent. And because they're independent, there are all these things that arise. So we detached a little bit from the word independent. And I said, okay, so does this equal independence? And they said no. And I said, does this equal independence? And they said no. And so we found out that independence was another word for them, for the client, to use as isolation, which is a horrible word and completely different from independence. Now, isolation, let's back up, is not a horrible word, but what a horrible thing to equate to independence, right? So their sense, their emotion used the word independence, but what they were feeling was isolation and rejection and abandonment. Big, big difference. Once this happened and you can uncover what's going on, which is the U of dunk, right? Uncover, then we begin to notice. We can notice the difference between our emotional voice and that really tiny inner wisdom, your intuitive voice. It also helps us notice all the other things that come with the attachment of a word or a scenario. You could say, oh, you're right. I wasn't, in this client's case, what we noticed was when we talked about isolation and abandonment, that they could see how they looked at all their other relationships, relationships with friends, relationships in business. How is business not expanding because of this misuse of the word independence, and really getting into it, right? So we start noticing the differences once we are detached and we've uncovered the underlying, or one of the underlying challenges that's going on. And from there, we get to experience the outcome. That is your knowing, the K, the silent K of dunk, which is the knowing. You get to trust the decision that you are making based on your experiences rather than the story that you've had, right? Which is why I'm a spiritual shit disturber. It's by using the dunk method. I shake you up in certain ways. Sometimes it's with humor. Sometimes it's by coming at you and talking about things that you weren't expected or anticipating to talk about. And from doing that, it shakes you up a little bit so that you can detach, uncover, notice, and then you get to go out into the world after our session and start working these experiences and turn it into knowing. Once we know certain things, we can't unknow them. And it sounds horrible. Why am I using the word horrible so much? It sounds intimidating and a little bit scary, but it's amazing to know something because we get to make different decisions and we get to look at ourselves on an even bigger platform. We are meant to be huge human beings, not these tiny, petty little things that are not to be noticed and witnessed in this lifetime. We are meant to stand up, to stand out, to shine, to celebrate. We're meant to do all these things. And I know I'm going off on a tangent, but I also want you to realize that as 3D human beings, that get to experience emotions, we also have to experience the other side of the spectrum. So, yes, there is sadness. Yes, there is grief. But from that, as we, if once we grieve, we open up our spectrum of emotions so that our joy can be greater, that our compassion can be greater, that our wisdom is so much greater, right? So, um, I talked about one client about their dunk method and using the word um, independence. I want to talk to you about someone who's gone to the other side of the dunk method. He's my client, AJ, and he made a really quick discovery. He's going through a whole lot, um, physically, emotionally, mentally, financially. He's got it all going on. But what we did is we detached um, his definition of family. And what he found out is that in his definition of family, he wouldn't put himself first. And because he wouldn't put himself first, one is he forgot all the things that he loved. The other thing is that his family didn't get to know him in the way that he's meant to be known. And so it was a little bit of a challenge for the rest of the family to understand where he was coming from a lot of these times. Once we got through that, he started uncovering, oh, this is what I do for the word duty, because that's what a good son does. This is what I do because this is what a good husband does. This is what I do because this is what a good father does. Those are all well and fine, but it shouldn't come at the cost of loving yourself and discovering yourself. So we started talking, and he said, I used to be a DJ. And I talked to him about how creative he was. And he didn't understand that creativity doesn't mean you have to be a painter. Um, Creativity is anything. I've seen the most creative, like CPAs. I've seen a lot of creative people that are in mundane jobs. They don't use their creativity in their job. As soon as they get off their job, they're off doing amazing creative things, right? So you don't have to identify with creativity in these such rigid ways. And he remembered just how creative he was as a DJ. So um, once we uncovered that, his homework was to go back and talk to his old pals that he hadn't talked to in so many years since his DJ days. And wouldn't you know it, he started noticing that um, other people ran in the same circles that he used to run in. So he actually went to someone, I can't remember if it was a massage therapist or something, but he ran into someone, and one of his old friends happened to be there as well. And they said, I had no idea you knew this person. And they started talking. And guess what? That person was looking for a DJ, and he is on his way. So from there, he could now, from that experience, he now knows that he's on the right path, that he's making all these right decisions, and he's now trusting his intuition and making further leaps. So this is a little bit of a radical uh, change that happened within this person. And it's super exciting to see. And because from, there's still grief, there's still, hurt feelings, but there's also periods of joy and periods of trust that he's trusting himself to do these things. And it's so much fun to watch. And we still talk about, hey, this is the AJ that was not trusting, and here's the AJ that does trust. So we get to further have him detach from his old habits, right? So these are really cool, two really cool examples of the dunk method. You can do it too. You can do it on your own. You can ask a friend to help you out with this, or you can come see me. I am not that scary, and I'm a lot of fun, I promise you. So, let's talk about how people use their emotions and their an analytical mind to pull themselves away from intuition. So I have a lot of clients, and I'm actually one of these people too, that are people pleasers. And believe it or not, people pleasers are um, they're using their emotional selves and a little bit of their analytical mind to manipulate themselves in order to work out a situation so that they can be of service to someone, even though it doesn't benefit that person. Now, if you claim yourself to be an empath, I can guarantee that you've done this at least once or twice in your lifetime. And if we were to sit and have a conversation for about 10 minutes, that we could pick out other places that we still do this. We can't help it. It's our natural inclination to want to be helpful, to be of service. And, you know, there's a little bit in it for ourselves as well. We like the recognition, and it actually helps a piece of ourselves be a little bit calmer, because when there's conflict on the outside, or what we perceive as conflict, it makes it feel so much better if we can resolve the conflict, even if it's at the cost of using our own energy or money or time. I mean, that is all energy, right? So, I'm going to keep using the people pleasers. So, our strategy in order to get the recognition and the thing that we feel feeds us, we will become accommodating. We become the easy yes. That's what my partner D likes to call me, the easy yes. Now, I will be honest. I'm an easy yes because I'm always down for a good time. And I'm always down for something spontaneous. But what I'm learning is there are certain events and situations that I know that I'm not going to get that. And so I'm learning to say no to her. And it's been hard for me out is that it's actually more freeing for her, because then she gets to be who she is and not, keep an eye out for me just in case I'm not having a good time and may want to go home. So think about that you're actually freeing up that person if you're not being a people pleaser, right? So the strategy is that we want to be, accommodating, helpful, that we have these skills, all that other good stuff. There are other people who use strategy, and I use that with air quotes, as a form of manipulation. Think about jobs, right? That we want to mold ourselves in a certain way in order to get a certain job or to present ourselves in a different way. And so that's a form of manipulation. And so um, our analytical selves will say, well, if I beef up this part and, embellish it just a little bit, it'll give me an edge over this other person, right? Or if I downplay this one part because I perceive it to be a detriment, maybe that will, shine a different light on me. So that's a different kind of strategy. Um, there are other strategies of what people do to make themselves look better or feel better about themselves. But here's the truth. We may feel better about ourselves for about 2 seconds, but then we go right back into doubt. And I'll be honest, I like to be say that a lot, I guess, as well. Um, my new um, my new meme or graphic, because of the clients that I have, is to type out the word doubt and cross out the O, I'm sorry, the U, the B, and the T. So all it says is do. And do is the thing that relieves doubt. So if we do the thing instead of just talking about it or trying to finesse a certain thing so that it makes us look better or position us ourselves better, we find that we are much more calm, that we are satisfied in a certain way. So just know that when we do strategy without strategic intuition, without the intuitive part, then we find ourselves sitting just as anxious, just as doubtful as we were before. So, what the fuck is strategic intuition? First, we have to work on our intuition, right? So, intuition is trusting that inner wisdom that we have. And if we don't trust that inner wisdom, that we trust that there are symbols on the outside that will give us the knock on the door to that thing within that will open up our intuition, right? So it could be symbology. It could be someone happens to say something that catches your mind. It could be a lot of different things, okay? But that's what the intuition, that's how it starts and that's how it opens up. You can even use playing deck tarot cards. I used to do this game called Shortcut Tarot, and we'd start with playing cards. And I'd set up some guidelines, and then we'd ask questions, and we'd use the playing cards. And you got to make up your own rules about what meant yes and what meant no. And what it did is that it didn't matter what the freaking answers were or what the guidelines were. What mattered was that you could see that your intuition is working with these little baby prompts. And that the more you did it, the more you trusted your intuition. And the goal was to get away from the cards and start listening to your inner self. Um, so that's the intuitive part. Everyone is intuitive. You can do it. You know that you've been using your intuition. A lot of people think that their intuition is the same as everyone else's, and that's not true. We are so unique based on our experiences, our upbringing, our belief system, that our intuition is a unique GPS just for ourselves, right? It's our own homing station, our own compass. So I can find a lot of people who are very similar in my work and that we have similar language, but there's absolutely no one that does intuition just like me. And there's absolutely no one that I can try and imitate and be intuitive like them. That's just the way that works, right? So here's the thing. Once we work our intuition and we have that inner knowing, the strategy comes here. When we're in our relationships, it's when do we give advice? When do we offer help? When do we sit back and watch? When do we just go in for a hug? When do we um, answer that someone's complaining about something, but what they're really saying is, I just need a hug. I just need someone to listen to me. I just need someone to say, that person's an asshole. You don't know if that person is an asshole or not, but that's what they need to hear. That's the strategic intuition. When it comes to people we love, it's a little bit harder to do. So it's great to practice on people that you don't know as well. And again, we're going to use the D-U-N-K method, right? And we're going to get into We detach. We don't worry about the inner story with that other person. We uncover what is it that they really want and what is it that they want from us. And then we're going to notice, right, the cues to make sure that what we are hearing is our affirmation of what we have heard from our intuition. And then we do the experience, we do the thing. We strike out the U, the B, and the T of doubt, and we throw in the do, right? And then from that experience, we gain knowledge, we gain wisdom, we gain so much, right? So, let's talk about how we can put this into practice. Let's bring it into real life because it's all about practical. I'm going to use real estate clients because, I'm a realtor. It just makes it super easy. Realtors are super intuitive. They know how to talk with people based on their cues. So they know if they need to speak quickly, if they need to speak slowly, if they need to be systematic, if they can be intuitive and they can jump all over the place. They're really good at that. Strategic intuition is listening for the cues. Here's how I used my strategic intuition. I loved working with first-time home buyers, and they'd say, I need to have a gourmet kitchen, and it's a non-negotiable that we need to have a gourmet kitchen. So the first question I ask is, are you, are you, enthusiasts, cooking enthusiasts? And I feel from them doubt. I feel from them a little bit of embarrassment, right? And what I know now is that it has nothing to do with cooking, right? It has to do with something else. More strategically, what I need to do is I need to have them recognize why do they feel like they need a gourmet kitchen? Because we want them to be in a house that they're completely comfortable in. And it's not going to be the gourmet kitchen if you're not a cook, right? So it could be that they want community. It could be that they want to be more healthy. That part doesn't matter. The part that's interesting for me is the strategic intuition and allowing the conversation to move in a direction so that they can discover what it is that they really want in their home. Okay. Now, I can move it even further and go into the house clearing piece of it, but I'm not going to at this point because I want to keep it as strategic intuition. So this is how you work with clients. This is in your work relationships. Sometimes your intuition is, listen, they're going to come to their own conclusion, or there's going to be a teaching moment, and you are so fortunate to be the teacher of that moment, or you're there to witness and you get to be uncomfortable and just let that person have that space to move through what it is that they're moving through. Or, it's a moment in which there's collaboration, um, guidance. That's where the strategic intuition is. And every once in a while, it's in doing. I just had a situation in my martial arts group where I was instructing for the class. There was one person I said, hey, do you want to teach this person a certain thing? And they said yes, very willingly, but there wasn't any enthusiasm behind it. So after a few minutes, I went back in and checked in on them. And I found that they are so stressed out, or they were so stressed out at that moment that they just didn't have it in them to give. And so I thought, well, you know what? If they don't have space for joy, I have space for joy. I have time because everybody else is taken care of. This is my teaching moment. So I got to teach these two people, and it was a great time. I enjoyed teaching them. They enjoyed learning. And so we got to put energy in on a situation where there wasn't any energy, right? So that goes into leadership choices. Know when it's time to bring someone up. Know when it's time to collaborate. Know when it's time to let someone sit. Know when it's time for someone to walk away. That's the hardest one. Um, a good leader knows that if you are, if it's not a fit, you're not helping yourself, but even worse, you're not helping that person. You're not being of service to the person who's on your team. Let that person go. Let them find the place that, that works for them. But again, you got to use the dunk method to know what's going on and see if it's a place where they need to find out for themselves that they're not a match for this job or this work or this field. Or maybe it's, that it's a teaching moment. Again, it's all the same things. And it also helps you define what kind of leader you are. I like being a collaborative leader, um, also called a student leader because I love learning, right? So that's the way that I lead and it works for me. And so I know that if there's a person that needs a different kind of leadership, then we need to move on because I'm not about stunting someone else's growth because, it makes me feel good for the next 5 minutes. That doesn't work at all. Okay. Now, remember I said that it's hard in family dynamics? Well, let's talk about that. You got to use the dunk method on an even more personal level, which means that it's very important for you to sit and go, I love this person. And even though that they're in a place of pain, my intuition is saying, I've got a witness and fuck, this hurts and it's painful. And they're looking at me like they don't like me and they're going to go talk to someone else, someone who doesn't know as much as I do. That part doesn't matter. It's really important for you to use your leadership skills in your family, right? So I invite you to use the dunk method for the next week and just try it. You don't have to even try it all day long. Give yourself 5 minutes every day and see what's really speaking to you. What kind of intuition do you have? How are you using it? And how can you use it for leadership, right? Um, Ask yourself these things you know, where am I overthinking? Or where am I overfeeling? Or where am I doubting myself when really there's no question and my intuition is clear? So I invite you to do these things. Don't overcomplicate clarity, right? Just use dunk and decide. I'm Cinthia Varkevisser. So happy to talk to you about this head heart hack. And look forward to talking with you again next week. Don't forget to like, subscribe to Mind Power Meets Mystic because we are amazing and we love that you love this series and want to know what you are so interested in. All right. So grateful for you. Can't wait to talk to you again very soon. Bye.